Tonight on CFTK-TV News, the Prince Rupert Sherbrooke Apartments fire was discovered to be intentional, the effects of the Canada Post strike are still being felt, and Port Coquitlam is bucking the trend in regards to landlines.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Good evening, I'm Cale Maslin, and here's what's making the news in the Northwest and beyond for today. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called a news conference in Ottawa earlier this morning where he ended up announcing that he will resign as both Canada's Prime Minister as well as the leader of the Liberal Party after a leadership contest takes place. Here's Jaylene Matthews with more details on what was said.
Despite best efforts to work through it, Parliament has been paralyzed for months after what has been the longest session of a minority parliament in Canadian history.
Trudeau went on to announce that Governor-General Mary Simon has agreed with his request to dissolve Parliament until March 24th. The dissolution of Parliament means that the opposition parties will not be able to trigger an election, at least until the Liberals elect a new leader. NDP party leader Jagmeet Singh responded in a statement saying Justin Trudeau's Liberals let down Canadians, and goes on to say they're only focused on themselves and their political fate. Trudeau's announcement came following many months of speculation over whether he would step aside, as well as public calls from his party to step down. For CFTK-TV News, I'm Jaylene Matthews.
Residents of the northwestern area of BC recently got access to 160 more kilometers of cell coverage along Highway 16, with even more set to come in the future. Once again, here's CFTK's Jaylene Matthews with more information on what that could end up looking like.
Almost 20 years and a few large industrial projects after it was recommended in the Highway of Tears Symposium Recommendations report, BC's notorious Highway of Tears has 160 kilometers more cell phone coverage. Rogers Communications announced in a statement they've turned on 5 new cellular towers along the 720-kilometer stretch of highway that runs from Prince Rupert to Prince George. 9 out of 11 planned towers for the highway are now in operation. Highway traffic has increased during the construction of the LNG Canada plant, along with other large energy and mine projects in the Northwest. This will likely continue with the number of projects on the go, as in Q1 2024, the North Coast region had a total of 53 major projects with a combined value of $119.6 billion in the works, with only 2 of those 53 projects being completed. The Highway of Tears Symposium report was submitted on June 16, 2006, in which limited cell coverage is identified, and it is recommended that the government and nations look into asking a telecommunications company to expand the incomplete cell service along the highway. Since the report came out in 2006, at least a dozen missing and murdered investigations have been linked to the Highway of Tears, including the still unsolved murder of Jessica Patrick Balser in 2008. Also that of Madison Maddie Scott, who went missing after a camping party in 2011. Her remains were finally found last year. And at least one of Cody Lejabokoff's 4 convicted murders. The new towers are part of an ongoing rural wireless service expansion project with the province's Connecting British Columbia program. Rogers says the Highway 16 project is part of Rogers' commitment to expand services to underserved, rural, remote, and Indigenous communities in BC and across Canada. For CFTK-TV News in Terrace, I'm Jaylene Matthews.
Back on Christmas Day, the Prince Rupert RCMP got a noise complaint that eventually resulted in them discovering a fire that ended up consuming a portion of the Sherbrooke apartment complex, although everyone in the building was able to be evacuated safely. But a later investigation that looked into what caused the fire saw the police discover that the blaze was not an accident, but instead was deliberately started by someone. The police have since arrested an individual in connection with the crime, and charges of arson have even been approved by the BC Prosecution Services against the individual. The arrested man's name is Michael Dennis Weir. He is currently 30 years old, and as of right now, he is still in police custody, presumably awaiting further judgment for his alleged crimes. The Kitimat RCMP's website recently posted another weekly report detailing 2024's final few incidents. One such incident included a complaint of fireworks going off in the Nechako neighborhood. This incident prompted the report to point out Kitimet's specific firework-based bylaws. Fireworks can only be bought between December 24th and 31st, October 24th and 31st, and June 22nd and July 1st, and they're only allowed to be fired on the holidays of New Year's Eve, Canada Day, New Year's Day, and Halloween night. Coming up next is a look at what the rest of BC's winter may end up looking like. Welcome back. The dawn of a new year has not eased the hardships that were brought on by the mail strike. Businesses across BC and the rest of Canada are still suffering, with Christmas gifts still undelivered as Canada Post employees work to clear the backlog. CTV's Craig Krause reports further.
2 weeks after postal workers return to work, small business owners in BC like Ann Smithers are still feeling the effects.
We still have a number of incoming shipments from our suppliers that haven't arrived yet.
Gifts left unopened and undelivered more than a week after Christmas morning.
As a small business owner, it's still really tough to take, and it keeps you up at night. You never want any of your customers to be unhappy.
Smithers says the strike cut sales 20%. Orders sitting idle for not only mommypow.ca, but for businesses across the country.
The system is a mess. It is going to take several more weeks, if not a couple of months, to put all of the damage behind us.
The Canadian Federation of Independent Business says the total damage is an estimated $1 billion after the Canadian Industrial Relations Board forced Canada Post employees back to work under their existing contract. Now time is ticking for the two sides to reach a deal before May.
This is a tinderbox, and we could be right back into strike action in just a couple of months.
If a deal cannot be reached, 2025 could be a bumpy ride for not only small business owners, but for many Canadians as well.
Remember, the biggest employers of people are not big business, they are small business. If those guys, the little guys, go extinct, watch out for unemployment problems.
Hi, here for pickup.
In the meantime, Smithers and her handful of employees are working ahead, finding creative solutions as the future remains uncertain.
We're forced to see maybe how we can do things better without Canada Post.
So that would mean severing ties with them potentially in the future?
It's entirely possible, yeah.
And Canada Post tells me that it is stabilizing its operations and working towards full service levels with a timeline of early January. But this comes at a time when the Canadian Federation of Independent Business found that 2/3 of small businesses are planning to reduce their dependence on the service. Craig Krause, CTV News, Vancouver.
There was no white Christmas for most of us this year in BC, and experts say the wet weather and milder temperatures will likely continue for a while. CTV's Ben Nesbitt with more now on what the rest of winter may have in store.
Far from a winter wonderland, Vancouver's Jericho Beach flooded over after another month of wet weather.
I've been in this neighborhood for over 20 years, and I don't remember having it that much rain and also mild weather.
According to Environment and Climate Change Canada, it rained more than 20 times in the city last month, while the average temperature was nearly 2 degrees more than usual.
I see people walking here in T-shirts, and we're in January, right?
Environment Canada is expecting a weaker La Nina pattern to move in towards the end of January, meaning lower temperatures and more rain.
At this point, what we're seeing for the month of January is a continuation of generally warmer than average conditions, generally somewhat wetter than average conditions, but there's still the possibility of a cold outbreak, although it looks like it'll be closer to the end of the month.
As for snowfall, Environment Canada says it's hard to say, but if it happens, it will likely be several weeks from now. While the wet, gloomy conditions have some feeling down, others have a different outlook.
It's not Vancouver without a little rain. The chilly weather, I don't mind. And there's a saying out there, it goes, we make the weather. So it's all about your attitude.
Ben Nesbitt, CTV News, Vancouver.
When it comes to landline phones, there's one corner of Metro Vancouver that appears to be bucking the usual trend. The mayor of Port Coquitlam says many people in his city are keeping their landlines out of necessity, but as Martin McMahon reports, it's not something they're happy about.
Hello. For many of us, landlines have become a distant memory, but in Port Coquitlam, the cell signal is so bad in places, a home phone is a must for some.
TELUS, Bell, and Rogers, they have bad reception in where I live. I went through all three of them in the past 3 months. So this was a very bad experience for me.
Adele Tawakkal's experience has been particularly frustrating.
I have a landline, and I use it when I'm at home. I don't use my cell phone. If I want to make a call out, I would use my landline. But if I'm outside, I would use my cell phone.
A recent Facebook post from Mayor Brad West indicates this isn't an isolated case. He got more than 200 replies, many expressing frustration when he highlighted the issue.
My son and daughter have mentioned it, and depending on where you are, but it's not always consistent, to say the least.
It's been pretty poor. Honestly, it's not very good over here.
We tried to clarify what, if anything, is being done about the issue and reached out to the major cell providers. TELUS told us we have invested over $28 million in the Tri-Cities in 2024 alone. Rogers said we're committed to delivering a reliable, consistent wireless experience for our customers and are always looking to enhance our network. Meanwhile, Bell, the parent company of CTV, says it doesn't have its own infrastructure in Port Coquitlam. And while the major phone companies say they're listening, those in this community say they just want a clear signal. Martin McMahon, CTV News, Port Coquitlam.
We now look to Nav Sangha with a profile of a rather large family who may have some useful tips on how best to save money on food, considering how expensive prices are at grocery stores currently.
Here at the Kosh household, if they can make it at home, they will.
Once in a while we cheat on bread, because bread is a lot of work to bake, but in general, muffins, scones, cookies, everything is all from scratch.
With a family of 7 and only one income, cooking at home is one way to save money. Being smart at the grocery store is another.
Having as many kids as we've had to always try to make sure that we're doing the most cost-efficient grocery shopping we could.
According to a report by Dalhousie University, the average family of 4 is expected to spend nearly $17,000 on groceries in 2025. The Kosh family estimates they spend approximately $700 a month on groceries and gas. That's a total of $8,400 a year for the family of 7.
I think just having a base budget, this is how much I'm willing to spend on groceries, is a good idea, because then you've got a number to kind of stick to.
Before they head to the store, they plan. Using the app Flip, they look at which store has the best deals. They also consider if they can collect points.
And over the last 10 years, we have $11,000 in points that we've spent and got money, like groceries and gas and things with.
They also pay close attention to the fine print, particularly the price per unit for each item.
And you can really figure out what is the best value.
For the most part, what will be bought is decided before they head out of the door.
Impulse buying is probably the worst.
Home economist Jody Kashkar says one way to reduce that impulse is to shop online.
I'm buying the things and I'm looking at the choices online, but I'm not hitting the potato chip aisle.
Chad Kosh wishes his family didn't have to budget this seriously.
We just like to be able to go to the store and pick things up and afford them without having to have all that pre-planning,
But with the price of food expected to grow, he says it's just what they have to do. Nav Sangha, CTV News, Edmonton.
And now we take a look at both your nightly and weekly weather forecast. For the nightly forecast, the North Coast will see some rain and a low at 9 degrees to go along with a wind warning being in place. The Terrace-Kitimat area should deal with snow and a low of -4 degrees, and the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District is expected to be mainly cloudy as their low sits at -10 degrees. As for the weekly forecast, the North Coast is expected to get rain and pretty much nothing else, with their high moving from 9 to 5 degrees. In the Terrace-Kitimat area, the week for them should include lots of rain too, but with a little more snow in addition to a high bouncing between 5 and -1 degree. And in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, the next week or so is most likely to get a sunny day mixed in with lots of clouds, snow, and a little potential rain as their high shifts from -3 to 0 degrees. Checking out the highways now, visit Drive BC for the latest and up-to-date conditions. And as always, drive safe out there. On Highway 16, there is slippery sections, utility work, compact snow, road maintenance work, other maintenance, road construction work, and the Esk Ferry has been shut down for the season with the cable car now in effect. Highway 35 has slippery sections, and Highway 118 has some slippery sections too. Highway 37 has some slippery sections and compact snow. Highway 37A also has compact snow, some more slippery sections on the Nishka Highway, and the Telegraph Creek Road has slippery sections as well. And this is what the roads were looking like this afternoon around the region from the View of the Province's highway cams. Still to come is a report attempting to figure out how Welcome back. The new year started off with troubling news in the waters off of southern Vancouver Island as the J-pod of whales has lost a calf that was born only a few weeks ago. Now its mother is repeating a ritual that captured worldwide attention in 2018 when another calf of hers did not survive. CTV's Andrew Johnson joins us with more.
It's a heartbreaking sight we've seen before, a mother whale visibly mourning her dead calf. It's the latest devastating loss for this population. A grim start to the new year in the waters south of Vancouver Island.
Absolutely devastating news and beyond tragic for J35.
Tahlequah, a mother orca carrying her lifeless calf that was confirmed dead on New Year's Eve.
It's very unfortunate. The anecdotal reports that were coming out over the last days were that neither the mother nor the calf were doing very well.
In 2018, a worldwide audience shared in the grief when the same mother carried her dead calf for 17 days, traveling more than 1,600 kilometers. Her cries captured on underwater camera.
That was real insight into the emotional lives of these animals. She's demonstrating clearly to the world that she's experiencing grief.
4.5 years later, Tahlequah and the troubled southern resident killer whales are back in the spotlight as they struggle to survive. There are only 73 whales in this endangered population that travels between Alaska and California. Biologists blame marine traffic and a lack of salmon for the incredibly high calf mortality rate. Approximately 50% of these baby orcas don't survive.
These whales are swimming in noisy, highly polluted waters. We're really at the 11th hour for this population, and we have got to make different decisions now.
There is some good news. Researchers are celebrating. Another calf was born just days ago and appears to be okay. It will be monitored closely by those who still hope this population can bounce back.
Much of the country was in shock after Canada's quarterfinal defeat to Czechia in the World Juniors. CTV's Martin McMahon takes a closer look at what went wrong in the tournament and how this country's hockey program can rebound.
And for the second straight year, the Czechs and Canada's hopes at the World Junior Championship, a 4-3 win.
The post-mortem is well underway, with Canadian hockey fans still trying to pick their jaws up off the floor. The immediate finger-pointing from many at head coach Dave Cameron, who was asked about canceling multiple practices.
Because we're exhausted. Like, there's no system for tired hockey players.
It doesn't have to be a big workload, but they needed to get together more often and not off the ice, not in meetings, not bonding there. They needed to bond on the ice.
Team Canada, number 2, 2 minutes kneeing.
Cameron's failure to prevent a parade to the penalty box also under the microscope. Canada shorthanded a tournament leading 27 times.
And a 66-year-old who is going to throw his arms up in the air when it comes to player discipline, saying that he couldn't do anything to address it after they took 9 penalties to the United States, and lo and behold, penalties were an issue in the quarterfinal against the Czech Republic. That is not taking leadership.
But is the problem more systemic? Some point to the affordability challenges which ultimately could limit our playing pool.
It is getting more and more expensive for kids in this country to stay involved in hockey and particularly participate in elite hockey, and I think that is something that we're going to have to reckon with.
For some, however, Canada had the players available, but it was those left behind that had as much to do with this outcome.
I think that there definitely needs to be some inward reflection on how they select their players, how they select their coaching staff, how they select their scouts, to have a better understanding of the players that they are working with and to how to best utilize them.
Whether the problems lie in short or long-term dysfunction after this tournament, most agree something has to change. Martin McMahon, CTV News, Vancouver.
And now we turn our attention to how the stock markets are looking as of today, pre-closure. The Canadian dollar is up 33/10 of a cent. The price of gold is down $7.60. Oil is up 11 cents. Natural gas is up 29 cents. Aluminum is down $61.50. In Toronto, the TSX is up 72.38 points. The Venture Index is down 1.54. In New York, the Dow Jones is up 184.38. and Nasdaq is up 289.36. Still to come is a report attempting to figure out Canada's World Juniors flameout. Welcome back. We're set to learn more about an incredible dinosaur footprint site uncovered in the United Kingdom and why it's being called the most significant find of the century. Plus, someone at a traffic stop was caught monkeying around. Here's CNN's Jeremy Roth with Take a Look at This.
Take a look at a dinosaur discovery in the UK that experts are calling mind-blowing. Roughly 200 dinosaur footprints comprising multiple walking trackways have been uncovered in a quarry after a worker stumbled on the initial discovery while excavating in 2023. Since then, experts with the Oxford University Museum of Natural History and the University of Birmingham have been working to preserve and protect the Jurassic-era footprint find, which they say is the region's most significant of the century.
What we uncovered was just incredible. The footprints at the site are from at least two different types of dinosaur. A huge herbivorous dinosaur called a sauropod. Those footprints are the largest ones. The other type of track was made by a carnivorous dinosaur called Megalosaurus. And so they have the really distinctive three-toed footprints, and they're massive. These footprints we're talking about are 100 million years older than Tyrannosaurus rex, which is mind-blowing.
Oxford will make the fascinating research available to the public in a future exhibition, and details of the dig will soon headline an upcoming BBC TV documentary. In case you missed it, another evolutionary discovery was made, this one on a California roadway, where after highway patrol officers pulled over this Rolls-Royce for speeding, they say they discovered an allegedly impaired driver, large amounts of marijuana, and a tiny spider monkey in a onesie. Officials took possession of the pint-sized pretty and pink primate and took it to the Oakland Zoo. The driver was arrested for suspicion of DUI, drug charges, and possession of an exotic animal in what the CHP called some next-level monkey business. For Take a Look at This, I'm Jeremy Roth.
That's all of our news for now. From all of us here at CFTK-TV News, I'm Cale Maslin, and thank you for watching. We will see you next time.